Welcome back to another Foxy Games UK video, and what a crazy, wild past 24 hours it's been for Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, and of course Activision Blizzard King. Certainly regarding as to whether Microsoft can convince regulators, the US FTC and the UK CMA, and obviously the EU, to get the $70 billion Activision Blizzard King deal over the line. But first, let's get some of the slightly smaller stuff out of the way. Elden Ring. Yes, Elden Ring has sold an astounding 20 million copies worldwide. The milestone was reached in less than a year since it launched. Indeed, From Software's acclaimed action RPG has taken the world by storm. Publisher Bandai Namco Entertainment certainly has a winner on its hands. One has to wonder if we can expect a direct sequel, or will From Software just simply move on to another IP, as it did with the highly acclaimed PS4 exclusive. And IP many gamers would be happy, really, if Bloodborne just received a 60 FPS performance update and, slightly updated visuals. One can but live in hope. Also, PlayStation VR 2 launches today, and the fanfare on social media platforms such as Twitter is palpable. A total of 30 plus games have been released or is coming to the platform in its launch window. Standout titles such as Gran Turismo 7, PlayStation VR 2, Horizon Call of the Mountain, and Moss Book 2 are just some of the heavy hitters available for Sony's latest VR technology. There are a number of free-to-access PlayStation VR 2 demos available to try right now on the PlayStation Store, and those free PlayStation VR 2 trials are as follows: Horizon Call of the Mountain, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Resident Evil Village, Cosmonius High, Song in the Smoke, and Puzzling Places. Now, many of my followers and media types are singing PlayStation VR 2's praises across my Twitter feed and social media networks, with some referring to PlayStation VR 2 as a Gran Turismo 7 game changer. Those receiving PlayStation VR 2 units today, well, have a great time, because I'll be joining you as soon as there's an official Half-Life Alyx PlayStation VR 2 announcement. Good stuff. But as if that wasn't enough, yesterday Sony announced a State of Play event is scheduled for tomorrow, Thursday, 23rd. Here's what you can expect. Posted via the official PlayStation blog page, Sony requests that gamers tune in February 23rd for exciting updates from its third-party partners, including PlayStation VR 2 reveals and an in-depth look at Suicide Squad. It's the first State of Play in 2023, some highly anticipated games from Sony Interactive Entertainment's third-party partners, as well as a first glimpse at 5 PlayStation VR 2 games set to arrive later this year. There will also be more than 50 minutes of all new gameplay details and updates on Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, the next game from Rocksteady Studios, makers of the Batman Arkham series. So, about 45 minutes in total then, and it all kicks off Thursday, 1 PM Pacific Time, 4 PM Eastern, 9 PM GMT, and 10 PM CET via Twitch and YouTube. Okay, so moving on to our main news story. Reported via PSU.com and moreover GamesIndustry.biz, where GI's Christopher Dring covered the games industry's mini soap opera that Xbox, Sony, and Activision Blizzard King are all entwined in. So yesterday, Microsoft and Sony, as well as the global press media, were in Brussels, Europe. Microsoft's last-ditch effort to convince regulators the deal is good for the industry. Safe to say, Microsoft has faced a wall of opposition, with Sony at the helm of the mother of all objections. I mean, there's never been a deal like this, well, of this magnitude. Need I remind you, $70 billion is on the table, making the Xbox Activision Blizzard King acquisition the biggest in the storied history of the gaming industry. Microsoft President Brad Smith was in Brussels, still hoping for a deal to be inked with Sony, but Sony are having none of it. Meanwhile, Activision is strongly criticizing Sony for, and I quote, trying to defend its 2-decade dominance in games. Wait, so Activision, and by extension, Xbox, is accusing Sony PlayStation of protecting its bottom line, its bread and butter, the brand that literally saved Sony Corp during its darkest times, protecting its 2-decade dominance console market share. Isn't that exactly what Sony is supposed to do? I mean, am I missing something here? Should Sony be penalized for delivering excellence across multiple generations of its consoles with great content? What planet are we on? So far, Sony hasn't agreed to anything Microsoft Corp has proposed, but it knows it doesn't have to. The bigger players in the industry are not the biggest fans of Xbox/PC Game Pass. Well, it erodes revenue, and Sony's lawyers must be supremely confident in how this all plays out. As for Microsoft, this is a very crucial time for the Redmond firm. If the deal were to fall through, it could end up costing Microsoft billions of dollars, and yet it could walk away with nothing. At this stage in the process, Microsoft could stand to lose $2.2 billion if the deal were to fail today. Over $2 billion. Let that sink in for a minute. So, back to the PlayStation Universe article written by David Carcassel. Despite Sony continuing to be ardently against Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard King, the Xbox parent company would still like to sign a deal with Sony if it can. And at the same time, Activision is becoming even more outspoken against Sony and attempting to call it out in a newly revealed statement for trying to defend what it calls Sony's 2-decade dominance. The European Commission's mission is to protect European consumers, not the global market leader. Sony is attempting to undermine that goal to protect its 2-decade dominance in video games. We are confident regulators will find that our proposed merger will enhance competition and create greater opportunities for workers and better games for our players, said Brad Smith. It's worth noting that there are more than a few Activision Blizzard executives who stand to earn more than a pretty penny if this deal goes through, with Microsoft paying a premium on the company's shares. Microsoft President and Vice Chair Brad Smith reiterated that there is no current deal with Sony, but says, "I hope we will," when asked if the two had reached a deal. Beyond his hopes, however, Smith is seemingly just as blunt as Activision, saying that Sony can spend all its energy trying to block this deal, or it can sit down with us and hammer out an agreement that addresses what it says it's concerned about, mainly the access to Call of Duty in the future. Here's a quote. "Do you want to kill a deal and cement Sony's position, or do you want to open this Call of Duty up to 150 million more people?" Now, the 150 million more people Brad Smith refers to comes from a combined player pool of Nintendo Switch and Nvidia's GeForce Now, who will each have access to the Call of Duty IP and other titles if the deal goes through. But this figure, however, does not seem to presume that all of these people within both player bases have no other platform at their disposal. And in turn, PSU.com sourced the information via GamesIndustry.biz and The Verge. Though speaking of GamesIndustry.biz, Christopher Dring wrote, "Microsoft has signed deals with Nvidia and Nintendo, but is not close to a deal with Sony concerning the Activision Blizzard King merger." So Microsoft has also rejected the idea that it should sell part of the business such as Call of Duty to get the deal approved, even though it has claimed in the past that its main interest, its key focus is on Candy Crush and the mobile sector side of King, a subsidiary of Activision. I think Microsoft's bluff got called, and it kind of wrapped its tail between its legs and played possum. Now, I've been jokingly calling the Xbox Sony Acti drama a mini soap opera, and for good reason, to which you are about to find out why. So Sony remains opposed to Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, despite the two companies meeting in Brussels, but Microsoft has reached a deal with Nvidia, which will see most Xbox games that are also on PC released on Nvidia's GeForce Now cloud service. This will include Activision Blizzard games and Call of Duty if the deal goes through. It follows a similar deal the firm has signed with Nintendo. Now, persons familiar with the situation told GamesIndustry.biz that the deal is not even close, and it's really a report backed up by Microsoft's Brad Smith in a post-hearing press conference. It follows a close hearing at the European Commission as Microsoft tries to convince the European regulator to approve its bid to buy Call of Duty. Now, Smith addresses regulators in a briefing with the media when he urged them to approve the deal, arguing it will enable more gamers to access these games. Now, Sony, Microsoft, and Activision Blizzard weren't the only big players in the industry present at the hearing, as other companies, including Google, Nvidia, and other interested parties and game experts were there to witness it all go down. The deal is facing opposition from regulators in Europe, UK, and the US. The US regulator, the FTC, is taking the deal to court in an effort to block it. Both Europe and the UK regulators has asked Microsoft to offer remedies to its concerns in order to get the deal approved. Wow. And people claim Sony fear the Xbox acquisition, well, for various reasons, I suppose. But most of them are baseless, but hey, it is what it is. Every Schmo and Joe is going to have an opinion on this. Xbox Twitter media account Clobro, and there's no animosity between this individual and I. Clobro, I actually follow via Twitter, tweeted this, and I quote, "Xbox has been the underdog for 20 plus years. Xbox is done with being just fine. Sony isn't fighting the Activision Blizzard deal so hard because they have concerns about reduced competition. Sony is doing this because they do fear competition, challenging their market leading role." Interesting take. Sony fear competition, challenging their market lead. Well, yeah, there's going to be concern when rivals attempt to pee in your backyard. Sony obviously want to maintain its position. Only those with zero business acumen expect it to just simply roll over to concede market share to Microsoft. This isn't like a menage a trois. The individual parties don't take it in turns. I think with the high production, high quality blockbuster gaming experiences and historically reasonably priced hardware Sony Interactive Entertainment SIE has provided its customers, or if you prefer, its player base, over the decades, has earned its rightful place in the market. Had Microsoft offered its user base a consistently high level of quality, I mean it only had to match Sony, not even surpass it, then I dare say the public would be far more sympathetic to Microsoft and its Xbox brand. And I say this as someone who has purchased every generation of Xbox. At one point in the 7th generation, for a hot minute, I even favored the Xbox brand over PlayStation. Yes, the Xbox 360 was kicking PlayStation 3's ass for like 3 years in that generation, but Sony won me back with games like Uncharted 2, while Microsoft, well, focused on Kinect. Now, I am currently an owner of an Xbox Series X and have enjoyed what few stellar Series X only games are available on the platform. Hi-Fi Rush for sure, but those stellar releases have been inconsistent and somehow I'm always in wait mode with Xbox. I honestly have no dog in this race. As a multi-platform user, I can easily access Call of Duty regardless of where it lands in the future, so I am not particularly fussed if the deal goes Microsoft's way or not. I think Sony should invest more in its own killer first-person shooter IPs. It's criminal, absolutely criminal, there hasn't been a new Resistance game for over 12 years. Xbox boss Phil Spencer at Xbox P3 Twitter tweeted this: "We have signed a 10-year agreement with Nvidia and will allow GeForce Now players to stream Xbox PC games as well as Activision Blizzard PC titles, including Call of Duty. Following the acquisition, we're committed to bringing more games to more people, however they choose to play." Yeah, Phil, except if they play on PlayStation. Now, to summarize, Microsoft has signed a deal with both Nvidia and Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to GeForce Now and I'd say Nintendo Switch consoles, but this current Switch can't handle Call of Duty, so you expect cloud versions until some more capable hardware, a successor, is released. But it will also bring all Xbox games that are actually on PC to GeForce Now. Sony remains opposed to the deal and will not sign the agreement. And now it's down to the FTC, the CMA, and the EU to decide Microsoft's fate with a staggering $70 billion on the line and a boss nobody at Activision likes in Bobby Kotick. It really is all to play for. though what say you? Let's continue the discussion cordially in the comments, as that brings us to the end of the video. Quick reminder, the Foxy Games UK February 2023 giveaway, 2 God of War Ragnarok digital copies for PlayStation 5 up for grabs. Just like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment regularly on videos. The draw is totally random, so anyone can get it. Good luck out there. And you can help Foxy Games UK reach more gamers, so feel free to share the video, and you may also wish to consider supporting Foxy Games UK via Patreon, because, well, we're like family now. Link in the description. But that concludes our time together on this Wednesday. Until next time, play games, not corporations.